Welcome to Philippine Constitution Unlocked. Today, we're diving into the exciting clash between executive privilege and congressional power of inquiry. Let's break it down and uncover how these two powerhouse concepts shape our democracy. Executive privilege versus power of inquiry. Executive privilege allows the president to keep certain communications secret, especially those involving national security, diplomacy, or military matters, to protect sensitive discussions and ensure effective decision-making. In Neri versus Senate, GR number 1-80643, September 4, 2008, the Supreme Court ruled that only the president can invoke executive privilege, although the executive secretary may do so on his or her behalf. The privilege applies to cabinet members and close advisors who are directly connected to the president. Two tests determine its application. 1. Operational proximity test. The official must work closely with the president and provide significant advice on decisions. Second, organizational structure test. The official must hold a position directly connected to or reporting to the president. These tests ensure that executive privilege is limited to those who are sufficiently close to the president through their work or position. In the above-mentioned case, Neri testified before the Senate about the National Broadband Project, revealing that COMELEC Chairman Abalos offered him a 200 million peso bribe, which he reported to President Arroyo, who told him not to accept it. When asked if the president followed up, prioritized, or directed approval of the project, Neri refused to answer, invoking executive privilege. However, he expressed his willingness to answer other questions not covered by the privilege and stated he was ready to testify on new matters. The executive secretary later sent a letter to the Senate formally invoking executive privilege. The Senate insisted on Neri's testimony, leading to a contempt order and Neri's petition to the Supreme Court to clarify the scope of executive privilege. The court addressed the constitutional issue of balancing the powers of Congress and the executive in inquiries in aid of legislation. The Supreme Court upheld the presumptive presidential communications privilege, especially for military, diplomatic, and national security matters. However, the privilege can be overridden if there is 1. A compelling need justifying its limitation, and 2. Unavailability of the information elsewhere by an appropriate authority. The court ruled that the Senate failed to show a compelling need for disclosure. It explained that legislative inquiries often rely on predicted consequences of actions rather than exact facts, and Congress frequently legislates based on conflicting information. Furthermore, the legislature cannot demand such specific explanations for invoking executive privilege that it effectively discloses the protected information. The Supreme Court highlighted the concept of roving commissions to warn against overly broad and unfocused legislative inquiries, lacking a clear connection to Congress's lawmaking function. Such investigations risk being used for political harassment or publicity, violating the constitutional separation of powers and undermining due process by leaving witnesses unprepared or unfairly exposed. The court emphasized that Congress's investigative powers must be tied to a specific legislative purpose and confined to permissible areas. Subpoenas must clearly state the inquiry's subject, its legislative connection, and the information sought. Neri's request for advance questions was deemed a reasonable safeguard against vague inquiries. By addressing the risks of roving commissions, the court reinforced the need for investigations to remain focused, fair, and within constitutional boundaries. Criminal trials. Executive privilege does not apply when evidence is needed for a criminal trial, as the need for justice outweighs confidentiality. In United States v. Nixon, 1974, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that President Nixon could not withhold critical evidence such as audio recordings in the Watergate investigation. Shielding such evidence would undermine the judicial process and allow public officials to act above the law. If a criminal case is pending, executive privilege must yield to the specific need for evidence essential to a fair trial. The public's right to information on matters of public concern. The public's right to information on matters of public concern does not cover privileged communications, such as presidential conversations, correspondences, or cabinet discussions. While the executive branch must provide access to non-confidential information like public records, this right is limited. Confidential matters, including state secrets, military plans, and diplomatic negotiations, are protected to ensure national security and public interest. Additionally, this right does not grant the public the power to compel testimony from government officials. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's empower Filipinos one click at a time.